This is the multiple award-winning GardenDC podcast, the podcast about everything gardening in the Washington, D.C. and Mid-Atlantic region and beyond. I'm your host, Kathy Jentz. I'm the editor of Washington Gardener magazine. Our content is aimed at gardening enthusiasts, people who grow everything, from edibles to ornamentals, natives to exotics. If it grows in our area, that's what we talk about. Welcome to episode 264 of the GardenDC podcast. In this episode, we talk with Teri Speight all about inspiring Black flower farmers and florists. The plant profile is on the KatsuraTree, and we share what's going on in the garden as well as some upcoming local gardening events in the What's New segment. We close out with the last word on spectacular crafts from Christy page of Green Prints. In addition to everything else she does, Teri is also an avid reader and writes book reviews for our Washington Gardener magazine. I'll share an excerpt from her most recent review of our mutual friend Jenny Rose Carey's new book on bulbs. Be sure to listen to the end of the episode for that. This episode, we're joined by Teri Speight. We last had Teri on way back in July 2021. She's my co-author of The Urban Garden, but I wanted Teri to come back with us now and talk about her latest book, Black Flora. Welcome, Teri.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me. How are you today?
Good. A little bit of a cold spell outside, but doing well. And are you staying warm, Teri?
I'm trying. We have to be prepared for the weather, so I'm trying.
And I think none of us are acclimated. I think that it's been a long, beautiful fall here in the Mid-Atlantic. We've had a lot of nice warm days, and then now we're not prepared.
Not at all. Well, but I'm ready to kick back and read some books and review some books and talk to people and just have a good time in what I call the nesting season. So I'm kind of ready.
Yeah, I'm ready for that nesting season too. I think a little bit of slowdown and being forced indoors is not a bad thing in the gardening year. So last time we had you on, we talked all about your background, how you got into gardening, and our book together on urban and small space gardening. But that was 4 years ago, Teri. Can you believe it?
No.
So what have you been up to in the last 4 years to talk to our listeners about?
Enough and not enough. I've become quite active with National Garden Clubs, and I try to write for them. I'm on the board. We're starting up something new. It's kind of a secret right now, but we're starting up something new, and I'm excited about that. I've done my normal travel back and forth to Paris. However, this year, because of uncertainty, I decided to travel more in the United States. And I have had a great time meeting new people, speaking to different groups. I have worked a little bit on a novel that I'm slowly working on for my post-retirement years. And more speaking engagements, and just writing. Got back on Substack. So just a lot of stuff here and there, and just helping to enlighten people about the joy of gardening.
Mm-hmm. And what is one of your favorite trips that you took in the last couple of years?
Well, it's always Paris. Well, that's not hard, Kathy. It's always Paris. However, I went to England. I'm itching to go back. England was a lot of fun. I really want to go to Chelsea. I also want to go to New Zealand, but that's not on the list at the moment. But I think out of all the trips, this is going to sound corny, but out of all the trips that I went on, at least for this year, probably my favorite one was going to Oella, Maryland, to a small little garden shop. That was just so magical. So sometimes where we want to go far for the adventure of it, to see gardens here and there and different gardens, sometimes if we look in our own backyard, we see things we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big believer in staycations and exploring your own city
Yeah.
because you just can't see it all. And also going back to some places that you haven't been in, say, 10, 20 years.
Right. Right. The magic of it is it looked it should have looked different when you were there previously. And going to new places, you're kind of like, wow, you know, going to Oella, I ended up in Sykesville. Sykesville is a cute little plant shop there, great ice cream place there too. And it was like, all this is within reach, right in the mid Atlantic, right in our own backyard. Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes exploring familiar turf and uncovering stones that you might not have turned over another time can be so much fun.
Mm-hmm. And so you've also been busy writing Black Flora, and let me get the whole title right, Inspiring Profiles of Floriculture's New Vanguard.
And not a complete rewrite. We upgraded some of the profiles because the book is about African Americans who are in the industry of floriculture. And maybe they were not known, maybe they were underknown, maybe they just kept their gifts under wraps. And it was time during that period of pausing for them to kind of come out from the shadows, so to speak, and show people their skill set and who they are. And it has been a magical experience for many of the people that I profiled.
Mm-hmm. So you have, I think, 20 profiles in the book. There are growers, there's florists, and there's designers. And I'm
Yeah.
imagining there's many that are, not just one of those, but they might be two of the three, a grower and a florist, or a florist and a designer. How did you pick who you picked in the book?
They were all, well, they were references, some from the actual participants in the book, and others came from the former editor because this is the second printing. This time it is printed by Timber Press. They're my publisher. So we had to upgrade some of the profiles because just like the garden, florists are never the same. They change their style, they change what they're doing, they grow. Some of them say, you know what, I want to do something else now. So we are just like the garden.
And it has a fresh new cover, I think some new photography in there. And can you talk about who of those 20 might be local to us here in the Mid-Atlantic US?
How far down are we going?
We could go pretty far if you want.
Well, there's Dee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, right here in DC, we have Kaifa Anderson Hall.
Mm-hmm.
She's right here in DC. Grew up here, played. She grew up in the neighborhood near the Botanic Garden. So I would like to say the Flowers called her way back when. And even though she was really into helping seniors at one time, she went back and became a horticultural therapist. And now she's still doing what she did before, just with a little flowers thrown in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Dee down in the Norfolk area, the Cottons in North Carolina. And I've met so many more along the way that are not in the book. That's why this is just, it's so exciting to have been the voice to put these people in the face of the world. And now I'm finding more, which is great.
And going back to Kaifa, I think a lot of people would be familiar with her from her work for many years with the Washington Youth Garden that is located at the US National Arboretum. So that you were alluding to, that was more vegetable, food growing, but then she, in her post Washington Youth Garden years, is more into the flower side of things.
Right, right. And even when she was participating with the youth garden, she was introducing some of the young people to houseplants. Because, once your hands are in the soil, it just grows.
And I think part of that horticultural therapy, that might be for people who are renting or don't have access to outside growing space. So then your best alternative, of course, besides container growings, is houseplants or indoor gardening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you can just imagine someone giving you a cutting and you putting it in water and watching it root and then putting it in soil and watching it grow, that calms the spirit, it soothes the mind, and we know that's the gateway.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it starts.
Yep. And then, so Black Flora recently won a couple of awards. I want you to brag about yourself for a little bit.
It's hard for me. But I did win. I won the gold through Garden.com. And I won 2 silvers, laurel. They're gold laurel and silver laurel awards. So that was exciting, totally unexpected, but exciting. I had no idea I was going to win an award for this book.
And that was for the writing, correct, of the book. So those are writing awards, that's even more, I think, fulfilling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. An award period is fulfilling. Being a writer, I'm not sure if you have gone through this or still go through it. Sometimes, you're not sure if your words resonate with the masses. I remember years ago when I first started writing, someone who's actually a dear friend now said, "Oh my goodness, your writing is so floral." And I was like, I'm not sure how to take that. But
Mm-hmm.
it is florally because that's who I am. So sometimes my writing, it is totally from my heart. So my writing may not be like other people's writing, but I take that as me just being uniquely in tune with my thoughts and what I feel about flowers, the earth, and how we should receive it into our lives.
And you were saying that you're going around speaking and traveling with the book and that you're running into many more people that deserve to be profiled. Do you think there'll be a part 2?
I would love for there to be a part 2 because so many people, in writing the book, it was hard for some people to come into the light, so to speak. That was a time when George Floyd happened. And so all of a sudden, here we are. Should we or should we not show who we are? So that was scary. But once I think the people in this book stepped forward, others are more comfortable showing their face, sharing what they do, uniquely designing flowers their way, coming up with recipes on their own, and also maybe deciding not to be a flower farmer, but just to be a florist and just create. So, like I said, like the garden, everyone in that book has evolved or changed, and I'm proud of everybody in the book with what they're doing.
Yeah, and everybody has their different influences and aspects, which is wonderful to see. Also, some of their backgrounds is interesting. I think a lot of people, when they cite who they're influenced by, it's almost always a grandmother, an older family member, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That was the familiar thread with just about everybody in the book. We came to flowers from our familiar, whether it was an ancestor, whether it was, in the neighborhood, another elder, whether it was just gardening with your mom. All of us pretty much had the same influences, which was so special. That was the common thread that I think put everyone at ease and allowed us to have just some of the best conversations.
I think I'm going to speak for myself, Teri, and say that you're super easy to talk to, and I think people would be very sharing of their story, in particular with you, and relaxed and able to open up. So I think that's a high compliment for you as the author.
Thank you, Kathy. That means a lot. Thank you.
So let's address some of the African American attitudes out there about horticulture. And I'm sure you've run into this as well when you've given talks or talked to people about gardening. But is a contingent that seem to look down on gardening as beneath them, or they avoid it because it was associated with their enslaved ancestors. What do you say to them, Teri?
Say, I'm not being funny, but they ate, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
We can scoff it off or not, or we can embrace it, enhance it, and put our own spin on it and share it with the world. What some people don't understand is history has not been fair to us. History taught us one version of things. And from that one version, if you sit down with your ancestors and they tell you, oh, how hard it was, not being funny, but a lot of these young people are not cut from the same cloth as their ancestors were. What needs to be done is everybody needs to sit down with their elders and hear it from their own words. My great 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 grandfather fed African Americans that were going to a college in South Carolina, in addition to feeding his own family. So he was a sharecropper. He didn't have to do that. Did it discourage any of the generations after him from gardening? Nope. Everybody after him did gardening their own way. From my great aunt Edgenora growing sunflowers as a screen in the alley in Northeast DC, to my father growing hydrangeas by the front porch and a rose garden for my mom, to my mom sitting down with us starting seeds every spring. They were the same seeds, but still, the love of gardening, the nurturing feeling that you get when you're growing something from seed or for your family or to eat, it's in our DNA. Now, if you want to put a spin on it that there was someone else's story, oh, they treated us so wrong, that's personal. I, however, look at my ancestors and everything that they did with their hands in this earth. I honor them by my writing, by sharing their stories, and by being grateful that they had the common sense of Job to put a seed in the ground so we could eat, and we are still here.
Mm-hmm.
So the naysayers, I'm like, you need to do a little more research on your history and not just believe what everybody tells you. Do the research.
Mm-hmm. And so true that they were not just growing for the master, so to speak, right? But also
Yeah.
for nurturing their own family and passing on that information. And I do find it sometimes sad that there's a skip of a generation where people weren't talking about what they grew or passing on that knowledge.
Well, that's because of anger. But, I spoke in Williamsburg last year. When you hear stories of how the enslaved would work on everybody else's land but theirs and then come home and garden by moonlight, tell me that's not a determined people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So to have somebody say, oh, that's, too much like slavery. Well, I hope you have enough money to keep eating. I hope you have enough money to grow, even if it's a zinnia, to find the beauty that you're missing from your anger. We need to educate our minds and our hearts and do better for ourselves and not, once again, not believe what we've been fed. History's not been kind. But we need to move on now and do it for ourselves. Become self-sufficient.
Absolutely. And I love that many schools now have school gardens and are
Yes.
teaching the young children, and they're coming at it from a whole new angle.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's power in knowing that your hands can make something grow that brings you joy. That's just so magical to me. And even watching birds, drop a seed in your yard. For some odd reason, and I'm a perennialist. I think most people know that about me. There's a zinnia in my garden. Even after the frost last night, that zinnia is still standing today. And I'm like, where did that come from? I don't really grow a lot of annuals. Um, but it's there. A bird gifted me with that zinnia. We should look at gardening as a gift, the gift that our ancestors gave us. I don't care what color you are. It's a gift. Receive it, open it, and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And whether it's food growing, where you're feeding yourself or nurturing somebody else, but also, as most of Black Flora is about, is gardening for beauty, for joy, for those flowers.
Reminds us of our book, right, Kathy?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Food and beauty in the city.
Exactly.
But you're right. You're right. There's something about, and I've said this in many talks that I give, if you have a little pot and you put lettuce in it, and you put a zinnia seed or a cosmos seed or a marigold seed in there, because you can use marigolds for your salad, and you make a salad, you can enjoy that salad and enjoy those marigold blooms. That's growing for food and beauty in a pot. So you don't need to have a big area. Just grow something. It's good for your soul.
GardenDC will be back after this short break.
In the book The Urban Garden by Kathy Jentz and Teri Speight, you'll find dozens of inspiring and creative ways to grow flowers, shrubs, vegetables, herbs, and other plants in small spaces and with a limited budget. Whether you want to grow on a balcony, rooftop, front stoop, or a tiny urban patio, turn your growing dreams into reality and build a gorgeous and unique garden that showcases your personal style while still being functional and productive. With the ingenious ideas and resourceful tactics found here, you'll be maximizing yields and beauty from every square inch of your space. No matter what you grow, the 101 amazing growing ideas found in the urban garden will turn your tiny urban yard into a treasure trove of green you'll be proud to share with family and friends. Buy your copy today at your local retail bookseller or order it online now at Amazon.com or bookshop.org.
Let's talk about what's growing in your garden right now. So you said you're mainly perennials, but describe some about what you're growing. And for those who are maybe outside the Mid-Atlantic area, maybe talk about where you're situated in relation to the center of DC and your growing conditions, like your soil, your zone, that sort of thing.
I'm in zone 7B that's quickly inching towards an 8-ish kind of zone, because I've got these pockets in my garden that have brought me so much joy. I'm in District Heights, Maryland, so I'm in a suburb just inside the Beltway. My soil is the greatest. Why? Because whatever I grow, I turn it back into the soil. I really do mean that. I have very few brown bags in front of my yard, and usually that's, I'm getting rid of Elianthus right now, so that's what's in those bags. Sometimes they'll pop up, and I'm getting rid of them because, I don't want my yard to be a host garden for that little bug that's out there right now. But right now, if you were walking through my garden, you would think that you were in camellia heaven. I have an alley of camellias on the left and the right side of my garden that I love camellias. Everyone told me, but when I first moved back home 20 years ago, oh, you could never grow them outside DC. I have an alley of camellias on either side of my house. And they're beautiful. The pink ones in the front are blooming now. One of them even is slightly fragrant. The ones on the left side, they will bloom in the spring. The ones on the right side, some are blooming now, some are blooming in the spring. That's my fall color, if you will. And I use them for cut flower arrangements inside my house with those wonderful curly willow branches that we bring back from the flower show. To hold them up high, I bring them in bud and in bloom, because by the end of the week, the buds are open and it's just like, wow. So, and I have them situated so if I'm inside the house, I can see the camellias blooming, as well as if I'm outside in the garden. You'll see a lot of hydrangea heads. I have an addiction to hydrangeas. Really bad addiction to hydrangeas. And you'll see a lot of native plants. I've incorporated a lot of natives with my perennials so that I can give back to nature in addition to having something that's going to bloom like a little longer. So my garden is, I don't water it. I've not lost anything yet because I believe in planting the right thing in the right place. So my soil, because I make it myself from my compost, whatever I take out of the garden, I compost it over on the hill to the left of my house, and then I incorporate it into my beds in the fall. So like this weekend, I'll be using the compost from prior seasons and spreading it over my garden, and then I'll mulch it. But I don't cut things down. I neaten my garden in the fall. And some of those things that I clip back to neaten it, I actually use them in arrangements like Caryoptera stems. They're beautiful. They're silvery magical. My Perovska stems, I put those in vases as well. So I don't have any ornamental grasses. I borrow the seed heads from my brother's garden and use them in arrangements as well. So my garden is quite eclectic, but it's mine.
And how do your neighbors react to your garden?
One of my neighbors thought my garden was a park because he's like, "Where's your grass?" I'm like, "I don't do grass. I want my garden to be who I am." And I'm very floral, if you will. So I want to be able to go in my garden and see color. I'll tell you something else that is blooming, lantana. That is one annual that I will buy every year. I've got lantana in a pot below some art poles I have, and it just won't stop. It's been blooming all summer with no supplemental water. Imagine.
You were alluding to being borderline zone 8 right now. And in a mild winter, we can get that to overwinter for us. But we're kind of on the edge right here now for the lantana to winter over and be, I would call it a temperennial, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I will be using some pine straw as a mulch. I have a little bit of pine straw I collected when I went down south a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to try to use that to see if I can make it over winter because it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And do you also have a community garden plot that you're growing your vegetables in, or where do you have your full sun?
I have my vegetables in my community garden, but I also grow vegetables in 2 Vigo beds behind my house. Now, they do not produce as much because it's semi-shade back there, but they produce wonderful romaine, lettuce, kale, collards, because the foliage is gone. In the summertime, like my tomatoes, I got one, but it was a beautiful plant. So in the community garden, full sun, more prolific, and the groundhog doesn't bother them. But everyone, if you have lighting issues in your yard, I highly suggest a community garden plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have the access to be able to get a plot, there are long wait lists for some of those in our area, especially. But keep. I'm going to say nudge your local politicians.
Right,
Keep nudging them for more land for community gardens because we just can't get enough. And that's also where I'm growing my Mediterranean herbs, full sun herbs. Do you have a lot of herbs in your garden, Teri?
I have herbs because my front garden, along with the natives and perennials, I put my herbs in pots so that they have the optimal drainage. And I also have more sun in the front, obviously. So in the front, I have a little gazebo that I put up so the kids could read under it. I love my little neighborhood kids, especially there's one little girl that loves to read. And I told her, I'm going to make sure I create a space. So if you just want to get away from your own yard, you can come and sit and read. So I put the bench up this past weekend. So exciting. But if you cut through there, you're going to smell something. Below the Vitex, in front of, I have 2 Vitex over there. My favorite rose is on that same side. But then you start smelling things like sage. I had basil there. I harvested the last basil yesterday morning. Everything that's fragrant, that needs full sun, elevated pots throughout the garden. So if you're coming to the garden to look at a hydrangea, you might also see sage in a pot. You might also see lemon thyme, which I love. Lemon thyme is also always the skirt in the pots on my front porch. I love it. Rosemary that I bought up from Fredericksburg. I love it. You brush by it. The deer haven't bothered it, thank goodness. But you brush by it, and it's like, yeah, I remember my garden in the Berg.
Mm-hmm. They always say rosemary is for remembrance.
Right.
And it's always good to have a pot by your front door. And of course, you can snip off a little for cooking as well.
Right. I also use rosemary in my arrangements because why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think adding some scented plants, especially herbs, is a great touch. It can be a little hidden thing in your arrangement that they can smell it, but they don't know exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of my favorites to use is lemon basil because you get that strong lemony scent, but people are just flummoxed because they see basil. They don't know where the lemon is coming from.
Right. I'll tell you another one. I use lemon basil, and I've used the purple basil, the deep burgundy, in arrangements when I do a lot of corporate arrangements. And people were just like, that's basil? I'm like, yeah, the opal basil.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, that's basil? I'm like, yeah. It's like, can we have it by the end of the week? People are often surprised that it will root.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have their own plant.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you can grow it, okay indoors. It really wants to be outdoors, but indoors you can get it for a little while. And same with Thai basil. I always think that one has a pretty purple color to it, but a little more astringent smell.
Yeah. So yeah, you got to mix things up. Mixing things up is a great idea in my mind. The diversity that can be found not only in the garden but in a vase is amazing.
And speaking of vase, what else are you using for your fall indoor arrangements from the garden right now?
See, Sunday I cut. My dad loved mums, and so I was cutting mums to use in a vase because they last a long time. I keep my house very cool. The colors stay. I mix mums and I mix the last of my roses with camellia. And I not only use the blooms, but I also use the foliage because the foliage is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I made a hydrangea wreath from the dried hydrangea blooms because why not? I use my garden. My garden is not just something to walk through and only think about in the summertime. I use my garden at all times of the year.
So I know you have a pet dog, and I was going to bring up pets in some of those indoor arrangements because my cats love the dried hydrangea heads, and putting them up on the wall as a wreath can protect them for a little bit, but they still will, like it. It's just that crunchy texture that they like to mess with, because they're dried. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Precious is not, she has no clue.
Mm-hmm.
Her biggest thing is, do you have treats?
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a treat, she has no interest. But I can understand how some people with cats would have an issue with, even with dried flower arrangements, what they're calling everlasting arrangements now. You'd have to be careful what you're using and keeping it out of reach of some pets.
Mm-hmm. I know some people use like a finish spray, some type of like setting spray on their arrangements to try to keep them or get them to last longer. But I feel like that collects dust on them, like even more, like the sticky spray. Do you use anything like that?
No, because I look at the garden. Once again, I say this a lot because it's what I believe. The garden is ever evolving. So yes, you can have what they call everlasting arrangements, but at some point they're going to get dusty. At some point they're going to be really fragile, and dusting them off might be a little hard. So enjoy them while you can, for as long as you can, and then either create another one or purchase another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, or the cats discover the allium heads and decide to play games with them in the middle of the night. The latest adventure I heard when I was upstairs in the bedroom early in the morning, I was hearing them bat around some of my lotus pods, which I was not happy about.
I can
but
only imagine.
but lotus pods are irresistible, I have to admit. They have those beads and they're fun to play with. I was also going to ask about hydrangeas, your thoughts about some people will dip dye the dried hydrangea heads. Other people will use like a floral color spray on them.
No, just no. um, I'm a naturalist, so they're going to change colors. They're going to fade. They're going to fall apart. They're going to become brittle. Let's embrace nature the way she came to us and let her evolve like we do. I mean, I know I don't look the same way I looked when I was 16, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we should let our flowers age like we do and embrace it.
I agree. I think the kind of the full life cycle of the flower, even when it's opening up and spilling out the petals onto the counter or table that you have it sitting on, is one of the most beautiful parts of the flower.
Because it reminds us of life, life begins and we're young and we're beautiful and fresh and perky and everything. And then as we age, sometimes things kind of fall apart. It's okay. If we're still beautiful from within, we're still beautiful.
Amen to that. So let's talk about some fall plants for color outdoors and maybe some of your favorites for the Mid-Atlantic garden.
Well, one of my favorites is one that everyone told me years ago, oh, that's going to take over your garden. You don't want to grow that. And that's the Tartarian aster. So beautiful. Mm-hmm. So beautiful. That one, and honestly, my Vitex is still going. Now, I love Vitex. My Rudbeckia hirta is still going. That zinnia that came from nowhere is still going. And then my roses are still blooming. So, like I said, I'm in this funny pocket. And those are the things in the front yard. But in the backyard, everything is pretty much dormant. Foliage-wise is still there. The camellias that are in the back, their buds are still there. But I like using mums. I like using the asters, of course, our native asters. Mix it up with some Rudbeckia. It's a party in a vase.
Mm-hmm. And how about some local, I'm going to call them leaf peeping spots, or maybe places for fall color that you enjoy?
Driving down in Croom, Maryland on Croom Road. Oh, such beautiful fall color. And there's a farmer's market there on Saturdays. Going down Route 301, beautiful fall foliage. Going up into Western Maryland, there's beautiful fall color. I will say I went up to see Carrie right outside of Baltimore.
Carrie Engel at Valley View Farm?
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a couple of weeks ago that the fall color would be more vivid up there because it's cooler. And actually, I drove to North Carolina 2 weekends ago. The color was more prominent there than it carries. How bizarre was that?
Yeah, I was thinking because we had some drought this summer that we would have a really poor fall color fall. And actually, I think my oaks and things, which sometimes will go straight to brown, actually have some really nice red tones to them this year. So I was pleasantly surprised.
It's different here because, the two, I collect leaves every morning when I walk Precious. It's something that I did as a child. My mom we put them between wax paper and iron them, and then we put them on every window in the house. We had these beautiful leaf portraits, we called them. And up the street from me, there's a tree at dusk. It is absolutely golden. It's like the blaze on yellow. And then I've got the red oak that's right behind my house, native tree of DC. The leaves are so red this year. So it has been now, I think because we had a heavy rain just before I left 2 weeks ago, I think that rain kind of turned the on switch for the color. And now we're getting the color.
Yeah. It has definitely been a beautiful fall. So let's talk a little bit about some of your influences. Who are your garden heroes or sheroes?
Honestly, the two that made me even consider being a garden writer, Lee May, and I actually spoke to him, and he encouraged me to write. He's no longer with us. He's one of the ancestors now. And of course, because there is when you think about the garden and you think about African Americans and writing about the gardens and the contributions they made to gardens through Negro Garden Clubs, through just the Extension Office, and Spencer, right in Lynchburg, Virginia. Ann Spencer, when I read her writings, her poetry about the garden, I can identify with what she was seeing as her eyes glazed over with cataracts. I can identify when I go down and I stand in her garden what she saw. Those are the two people that really, to this day, are very meaningful to me. Lee May encouraged me to write as I saw it. And that's what I do. And Spencer encouraged me, her writings basically encouraged me to, doesn't have to be a complete sentence. If I see a leaf as a butterfly or a leaf as a ballerina dancing across the street, write it. It doesn't have to be the leaf fell from the tree, yada, yada, yada. And that's what I do because I laugh a lot. So when I see nature evolving, I find joy in what it's doing. So sometimes I'll be driving into work and the leaves will be like blowing across the street. And it's like, look at them dancing. I wonder what song they're listening to, you know? Or look at, the trees falling from the leaves like confetti. Maybe the tree is having a personal party. Maybe there's a bird up there or a squirrel making those leaves fall. Those are two people because they wrote how they saw nature. And that is what I think more people should do.
How can our listeners contact you to find out more?
Well, my website, cottageinthecourt.com, there is a blog there. I've been writing more on Substack because I write notes about things I want to write about. And sometimes to go to the blog is a lot. Substack is so quick and easy, but I write more in-depth things on the blog. And then on Facebook, under my name, Teri Speight. And then on Instagram and Blue Sky, it's Cottage in the Court. That's the best place for people to find me. And I'd love to speak to your groups or, a little freelance writing because with everything going on in the world, I just want to spread more joy about gardening.
We should point out your name is spelled like the number 8, but with an SP in front.
That's right. Only one thing.
And yeah, because I do hear a lot of people mispronouncing it.
Yes.
So I wanted to point that out. And let's talk in wrapping up about any future plans, upcoming talks. I know you're working on a podcast reboot.
Mm-hmm. Podcast is rebooting because people need to hear positive things about the world, the garden. And I've met so many fun and exciting people in the past 3 years, actually. And I want to highlight them and have conversation with them. And we're going to talk about gardening and everything positive. So that should debut in December. Just want to make sure that I've got everything down pat. I'm speaking to a private garden club on the Eastern Shore in January, February, to a group in New York. A lot of these are private events. And then I'm actually speaking in California, which I'm really excited about. And then probably back down in North Carolina. So I'm here, there, and everywhere. And I'm excited that people want to hear my voice. The voice of any gardener is such a refreshing break to everything else that we're hearing in the world today.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say is a great way to escape from the woes of the world. We'll just call them that.
Yes, yeah, I like that.
So, final thoughts for our listeners, maybe those who are, getting a little tired or long in the tooth in the garden and might think, maybe I'm not going to be gardening in a few years.
Don't do that. I just read something from Jan Johnson saying that we are more disconnected from nature than ever before. I really attribute that to everyone always being on their phone. They're always tuned in. As I told the group I spoke to earlier this week, tune out, walk in nature, get outside. For safety's sake, you can have your phone in your pocket, turn the ringer off, put it on vibrate, but don't pay attention to every time it vibrates. A lot of times people are like, I just called you. Well, you're probably not going to get me because I'm not always tuned in on the phone. I'm tuned into nature. It brings me peace. It calms my mind and my soul. And most importantly, it brings me joy. This is the most important time for all of us to get outside and connect with nature. Let's not have a study prove me wrong. Get outside.
Excellent advice. Thank you, Teri.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for being a friend, and thank you for being a voice of many gardeners in the Mid-Atlantic.
GardenDC will be back after this short break.
Get low-maintenance alternatives to lawns with Ground Cover Revolution by Kathy Jentz. Reducing the lawn is among the biggest trends in homeownership, with an endless stream of homeowners looking for an eco-friendly alternative to a traditional turfgrass lawn. In the last few years alone, over 23 million Americans converted part of the lawn to a natural landscape, and now they're looking to do even more. The biggest challenge to adopting this new ideal of the perfect lawn? Knowing how and when to replace your turf and which plants are the best ones for the job. Ground Cover Revolution is here with all the answers you need, and some you didn't even know you needed. Included are 40 in-depth profiles of plants that are perfect choices for replacing a grass lawn. There are options for sun, for shade, for dry and wet sites, and for various climates around the globe. There are choices that bloom, options that are evergreen, and selections that are deer-resistant. Kathy Jentz has also included an incredibly useful chart that gives you all the specifics on each of the 40 choices for quick reference and to make your ground cover selection process even easier. Whether you want to replace the entire lawn or just reduce the amount of land dedicated to turf, Ground Cover Revolution will help you usher in a new and improved idea of what a beautiful lawn should be. Ground Cover Revolution is available now wherever you buy books, including Amazon.com and Bookshop.org.
KatsuraTree plant profile. Katsura, Cercidophyllum japonicum, is a deciduous tree that has rounded, heart-shaped leaves that resemble that of the breadbud tree. Katsura is native to Japan and China. The bark is gray and slightly shaggy in texture. The foliage is reddish in spring, then green-blue in summer, and then golden-orange in fall. It is hardy to USDA zones 4 to 8. It is not drought tolerant, so water it regularly during dry periods. Katsura can grow 1 to 2 feet per year, reaching 40 to 60 feet in height and 20 to 30 feet in width at maturity. There is a weeping form which grows 15 to 20 feet high and 20 to 25 feet wide. Katsura has a shallow root system, so it does not do well in compacted soils. Add mulch around the tree to maintain a cool root environment. Katsura trees prefer to grow in full to part sun. They don't have showy flowers, but its beauty comes from the bark and foliage. In the fall, the dropped leaves release a sweet fragrance similar to caramel or cotton candy. Little or no pruning is needed. It is relatively pest and disease-free. Katsura can be propagated by seed or stem cutting. It does best planted in the spring and does not transplant well. Reportedly, when Katsura is grown in more acidic soils, the fall color will be more intense. KatsuraTree, you can grow that. What's new in the garden this week? Well, I'm enjoying the fall color of little blue stem and purple love grasses. I also cut the last of the few dwarf sunflowers that are remaining before the frost hit them. At the community garden plot, intern Cavett shared his take on the 2 different cilantro varieties we are growing. Check that out at washingtongardener.blogspot.com. In the tips that we shared on social media this week, we talked all about cold frames, including that when watering your cold frame plants, avoid using very cold water. Water the soil root zones, not the leaves, and do so early in the day to avoid fungal diseases. Finally, you may need to water daily in warmer periods or when using a heated cold frame. In garden events this week, if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, you know that the federal government has reopened, so that means we can once again visit many of our local public gardens that are on federal properties, including the Smithsonian Gardens, Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens. The U.S. Botanic Garden is open and back to its usual hours. And coming up, they are hosting the dinosaur-themed Seasons Greenings Dino-Mite holiday exhibit, which will open on Thanksgiving Day. The US National Arboretum will also be opening this weekend as we are recording the episode. Go to the Arboretum for their winter festival on Saturday, December 6th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This year's festivities will take place at the Visitor Center. Shop from 30-plus local artisans in the Gift Vendor Village, take a holiday train ride around the Capitol columns, and enjoy free family activities. There'll also be plenty of hot chocolate and caroling to ring in the holiday season. The Arboretum is also hosting a Christmas tree sale from Friday, November 28th to Sunday, December 7th. You can shop for your holiday trees and greenery at the Arboretum. 10% of all sales are donated directly back to the Friends of the Arboretum through this fundraiser. You can find out more about that at fona.org. Happy gardening!
This is The Last Word by Christy Page at Food Gardening Network with Spectacular Crafts, Unearth the Potential of Potatoes by Amanda MacArthur. The joy of a bountiful harvest is unmatched, especially when it's the ever-versatile potato. From savory dishes to hearty meals, there's no end to what you can create in the kitchen. But what happens when you've got more spuds than you know what to do with? I got excited about all the ways gardeners could use potatoes outside the kitchen. Of course, if you want to cook them, we have some delicious recipes for those as well. But before they sprout those unmistakable eyes and appear like they're about to walk off, consider diving into some delightful potato crafts with your loved ones. First thing you can do is make potato stamps. Unleash your inner artist with a tool you'd least expect, the humble potato. This eco-friendly and budget-conscious project lets you transform regular spuds into personalized stamps perfect for decorating paper or fabric. Whether you're aiming for simplistic designs like stars and hearts or venturing into a more intricate pattern, this do-it-yourself venture is a delightful way to add a personal touch to your crafts. Second, try potato stamped wrapping paper. Elevate your gift-giving game with a touch of bespoke charm. Using the unassuming potato, this project transforms mundane wrapping paper into a work of art, ensuring your gifts are as delightful on the outside as they are within. Choose brown craft paper for a rustic vibe or a plain canvas for a more minimalistic look. The hand-stamped designs, imprinted with love and creativity, give each gift a personal touch. Now, whether you're wrapping first or stamping first, this project is all about flexibility and fun. Third, potato-planted roses. Discover the magic of nature with a twist in this intriguing gardening project. By harnessing the nurturing power of potato, you can give your rose cuttings an enriching start. As the potato breaks down in the soil, it continually hydrates the budding rose's roots, fostering a healthy growth environment. 4. Potato bead necklaces. Add a touch of organic flair to your accessories with these charming potato bead necklaces. While the raw cut may not be a sight to behold initially, a little patience transforms these potato pieces into durable, bead-like gems. Painted in a palette of your choosing, these beads metamorphose into delightful ornaments that make for personalized jewelry or heartfelt gifts. Number 5, make Idaho Play-Doh. Crafted from actual potatoes, this all-natural Play-Doh offers a unique texture and earthy feel, setting it apart from conventional store-bought options. Beyond being eco-friendly, this mixture is easy to make, ensuring that you can quickly whip up batches for endless hours of sculpting fun. Whether for curious little hands or for artistic adults seeking a different medium, this potato-based Play-Doh is versatile, safe, and most importantly, a whole lot of fun. Remember to store your creations in the fridge to ensure they remain fresh for your next crafting session. There you have it, potato gardeners. Who would have thought that the humble potato, a staple in many of our meals, could also transform into personalized stamps to whipping up nature-inspired jewelry or even concocting Play-Doh. The possibilities are as vast as the potato field. This has been The Last Word by Christy Page at foodgardening.com.
Thank you for listening to GardenDC. This episode was made by real humans. It was produced and hosted by myself, Kathy Jentz, with editing assistance from intern Cavett Ireland. The Let the Sunshine music interludes are by James Mulvaney. If you like this episode, you may also enjoy listening to GardenDC Podcast Episode 66, Small Space Gardening with Teri Speight, Episode 5, Horticultural Storyteller with Abra Lee, Episode 253, The Flower-to-Vase Movement. By the way, you can become a listener supporter. Find that link in our show notes. Another way to support this podcast is to subscribe to our monthly digital publication, Washington Gardener Magazine. To do so, go to WashingtonGardener.com or WashingtonGardener.blogspot.com. You can find Washington Gardener on Twitter or X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Pinterest at WDC Gardener, and on Facebook at Washington Gardener Magazine. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast listening app, and please take a moment to share us on social media with hashtag GardenDC and with your gardening friends so other gardeners can find us too. Here's an excerpt from Teri's review of The Essential Guide to Bulbs, Grow a Bounty of Beautiful Bulbs in Gardens and Containers by Jenny Rose Carey. Is an outstanding manual loaded with information to empower gardeners to feel confident about growing bulbs in the ground or in containers. The mystery of growing bulbs is effectively explained by author Jenny Rose Carey. In her previous books, Carey deconstructs the necessary steps for successful gardening adventures with Glorious Shade and The Ultimate Flower Gardener's Guide. This time, the focus is on bulbs. Understanding the dynamics of successfully growing bulbs in containers was one of my favorite chapters in this book. As I delve into creating movable containers that capture seasonal beauty, it is refreshing to see how bulbs can add unexpected diversity to any container. Carey shares her perspective on proper container selection, soils, correct planting depth, and more. All of these components are key to successful container bulb gardening. Using photos from the author's own Northview Garden in Ambler, PA, a list of resources and essential tips, Carey has written another successful and useful book that should be part of every gardener's library.